If you'd like to purchase Magic Online cards at competitive prices, check out our web store at mtgoacademy.com/store.
It is time to draft another Born of the Gods Theros draft, which I like more, I find more interesting than, for example, Cube or drafts of previous draft format flashback drafts. So this pack of Born of the Gods has Temple of Plenty as the rare. Not the best card, even though I like the Scry effect and the mana fixing. Archetype of Aggression is a card that I could pick here. It's definitely the best uncommon. And then looking at the commons, a pretty weak pack with Elite Skirmisher, Chorus of the Tides, and Krugma Butcher probably being the best options. I like the Butcher better than Elite Skirmisher, which isn't really a top white common, and Chorus of the Tides is quite replaceable. You want to start your blue drafts with something else. So the best two cards in my opinion are actually the Butcher and the Archetype. I'm gonna try the Archetype here. I could see an argument for the Butcher because it's only a single red, and it's basically a 4-power attacker after one turn, and the Archetype does not work as well with cards like Swordwise Centaur, for example, due to its prohibitive mana cost. On the other hand, the effect to give all your creatures trample is certainly more powerful than that of the Butcher. So now there is Spirit of the Labyrinth, which is really just a vanilla creature, and the text on it is more often than not a disadvantage. Raised by Wolves is really, really good. So is Swordwise Centaur. I think that Swordwise Centaur is one of the best green commons in the set. Then Nyxborn Triton and Sudden Storm, and Nyxborn Eidolon in black. So I think there is no real option to pick a red card here. If I go for a green card, Raised by Wolves is more powerful than Swordwise Centaur, despite the fact that being active on turn 2 is very important. And then, well, I think that Sunstorm is slightly better than Nyxborn Triton, but it's actually really close, and you don't want multiple Sunstorms. In my opinion, once you have 2, then you are really set. And yeah, I'm just not the biggest fan. Alright, these rarer cards are all unexciting, but Deepwater Hypnotist and Divination are 2 nice blue cards. Ferrous Bandtrumper and Cetizen Oathsworn are 2 nice green cards. The one card that stands out here is Bolt of Karanas. It is a removal spell, it is red, which is the color of our first pick, and, well, it has a pretty simple effect. It just deals 3 damage. Now the problem with this format is that dealing damage with spells is just not as good as it would be in other formats. So I think this is actually quite a close pick between Bolt of Karanas and Cetizen Oathsworn, which you can just build decks around, which also works better with Raised by Wolves, clearly. So either way, my mana is just going to be horrible. Archetype of Aggression next to Cetizen Oathsworn is bad, but Bolt of Karanas next to Raised by Wolves is also not great. I think that there's a good chance that drafting the green card here could pay off. I'm willing to just sacrifice the Archetype if I can go into my favorite color and be in green rather than playing double red cards. Of course, now it would already look better if I had the Krugma Butcher instead, simply because of its mana cost. So this might actually have been a mistake not to pick the common there. Swordwise Centaur as a 4th pick is nothing exceptional, but it is better than picking Bolt of Karanas here. I'm happily putting someone into red behind me with the Butcher and the 2 bolts, but I have Raised by Wolves, I have the Cetizen Oathsworn, I have a really good reason to just start picking up green cards here. I have no reason to believe that green is being drafted. If I had to guess, I think that black and white are probably being drafted, because we see a good blue cards, good red cards, and good green cards. Alright, Traumacratis, it would be good in pretty much any other format, but it's very expensive in this one. So I'm looking at Nyxborn Triton, Ferrous Bandtrumper for the commons, and then there's Fanatic of Xenagos. Now if I still have ambitions towards going green-red, then the Fanatic is really, really good. Now, as I've said, I think that there's a very good chance that I put my left neighbor into red. Shipping the 2 bolts in particular means that there's a high chance I'm not going to see many red cards in the second pack. Now, the problem is, or the thing is, if I ship the Fnatic, then I might actually put somebody in green-red, which I absolutely don't want to have happen. I want green to be not be the color that my left neighbor drafts. Now, clearly, I cannot guarantee that, but I can at least try by taking the Fnatic here. The alternative would have been the Ferris Band Trumper. However, even if my left neighbor is red, but red is open at the table, then I can easily play a 10-7 or 11-6 mana base to only support the best red cards. Pairing the Archetype of Aggression with green also means that it might be valuable later on in the game once I have my big green monsters. Here I'm picking Aspect of Hydra, which works really well with the cards I have so far, and I want to have a decent amount of tricks for the Oath Sworn anyway. Definitely better than the 6 mana Pinnacle of Rage, and I'm just not a fan of Kermitras Favor. Pretty much the same pack here again, Aspect of Hydra, Kermitras Favor. Faded Infatuation I think is really bad, I'm not taking that. I really like Deepwater Hypnotist in this format. It's just a very solid 2-drop that sometimes it doesn't even matter that it has Inspired, but sometimes it does, and then you can just keep being the aggressor. Now the thing is, there's really not much upside to having a second Aspect of Hydra. I would much rather have a combination of different tricks, which, for example, the Rise to the Challenge represents, even though it's not amazing. Which is why I'm passing the Aspect here and just taking the Deepwater Hypnotist. This is kind of a hedge if red is so close from the left that I'm going to end up in another color, that I'm going to need another color. And then blue-green is also a nice combination with the cards that I have already. Blue-green Heroic, basically. Satyr Wayfinder is not amazing, but it is a 2-drop, and it does give green Devotion. Stormcall of Khurana, Cyclops One-Night Pass, and Servant of Timurit are all not that amazing. The Servant is better than the Wayfinder, but I really don't think that I should be moving into black, given how few black cards I actually saw. Excoriate is tabling, and Setessan Starbreaker would also be an option in theory. I really don't like to play it though. I'm gonna stick to my intuition that black and white are really not the two colors that I want to be in, so I'm gonna take the Starbreaker. And alright, this is a very late Nyxborn Eidolon. Epiphany Storm is basically unplayable, and Sky Reaping is a fine sideboard card. So here it's either the Eidolon to diversify even more and be open for black, or take the Sky Reaping and just focus on drafting a sweet green deck. I'm gonna go for the latter. If I put my left neighbor into black with all these Eidolons, then I'm also kind of happy about it. And Archetype of Endurance is an 8 mana card, which doesn't really come into effect all that often. I'm going to take the Rolliker here. It's only a single red, and you might actually want to cast it. So, not the most exciting pack to start the draft with. I would be feeling better if this was Kragma Butcher, so my first pick might actually have been a slight mistake. I could have also continued with the 2 bolts, just drafting Archetype into multiple bolts. I don't know if I would be in a better spot, and I stand by my decision to pick Raised by Wolves. If somebody passes me Raised by Wolves, I take that as a signal that I should be in green. Sylvan Caryatid as the rare, and then there's Staunch-Hearted Warrior, which is a fine common to have if you have the right deck for it. However, it regularly tables, and it's just also not too exciting. The most powerful cards here are Battlewise Hoplite, Triton Fortune Hunter, and the Voyage's End, but I don't really see myself moving into blue for Voyage's End if I can pick up a Sylvan Caryatid. Even though I want my deck to be aggressive, this is a good blocker, a hexproof creature, a mana accelerant. It's basically a better Voyaging Satyr most of the time. Voyaging Satyr is one of the best cards you can pick up in Theros if you're green, even in the aggressive decks, because the mana advantage is just huge. Alright, interesting. Sea God's Revenge is in this pack, next to Spear of Heliod and Erebos' Emissary, so both a white and a black card, somewhat unexpectedly. However, only Ferris Band Centaurs in green, no red card either. So what I suspected might be happening here, it's very possible that the person to my left is drafting red. It doesn't look like he's drafting blue, black, or white. That is so might actually be green, very likely red. So if you do a color sort, I have 2 blue cards and 4 red cards. If red is just absolutely dry, then I will need another color to pair with green. But only a couple of cards is fine, because green is usually quite deep, especially in Theros. And that makes it pretty easy that Sea God's Revenge should be the pick. I already have a couple of blue cards, but I also feel that blue is more open at the table than white or black are. Also, it's kind of difficult to pick a double white card here to support this kind of strategy. With and Erebus Emissary is just, well, in a color that I don't really want to be in based on what I've seen so far. This is a very nice Battlemaster and a fine Savage Surge, but Leafcrown Dryad is exactly the card that I'm looking for when I'm drafting aggressive green decks, simply because it's a 2-drop and a very cheap bestow creature, so there is really no competition between these cards. And yeah, we don't really see red cards. There's a Destructive Reverie, however that's usually not a super high pick, so I'm not... I still think that my left neighbor is in red after what I've seen here. The Hedonist is a 2-drop, and I like 2-drops, but Feral Invocation is great on my 2-drops. It's great on the Cetizen Oathsworn. I might also table the 4-mana 2/2 that grows. So yeah, I'm always happy to have 1 or more Feral Invocations in my deck. I'm also not really concerned with the gold cards right now. This means I'm picking up a powerful card while staying open, so pretty much the best of both worlds. This pack does have a couple of red cards I could consider: Ill-Tempered Cyclops and Rage of Perforos. I would go with the Cyclops simply because of my mana curve, and I think it's also the more powerful card. However, there's another Feral Invocation. I might just take that here. It works really well with Swordwise Centaur. It works really well with Cetizen Oathsworn. And it means that I don't have to commit to my second color yet. Which I might have to do now, because Defend the Hearth is definitely not the card that I'm taking here. And Omen Speaker and Sealock Monster are the obvious options. Priest of Aurora is definitely not on par with regards to power level. So it is going to be a blue card from the looks of it. Do I want an Omen Speaker or do I want a Sealock Monster? With 2 Feral Invocations, I should put a high priority on 2-drops, and the scrying from Omen Speaker is often more important than having a fatty. Now, sometimes the blue decks want a really large monster. On the other hand, there's another full pack of Theros going around, and usually you can find a lot of green 5-drops in these packs. I mean, Nastian Asp clearly being the prime example, but also Ferris Band Centaurs, or maybe Volpine Goliath doing quite well with that. So I'm more than happy to pick up a 2-drop rather than a 5-drop, expecting my deck to become more expensive than I want it to be anyway. Leafcrown Dryad is once again better than the more expensive options. It's pretty much the perfect card for my deck, which I already talked about. And that's a nice present, a nice gift, time to feed, mainly because of the Oathsworn, but also because I'm green and I'm going to build a large monster and have a nice tempo play that it's also a removal spell. Staunch-Hearted Warrior Wield, I can't say as expected, because it was definitely not a given. However, green is usually relatively open at these tables, and this is exactly what happened. So I'm just going to continue picking up the green cards. Not too interested in Prowler's Helm, and I could need a couple of more creatures. If I don't end up picking up more 5-drops, then Ferris Band Centaurs is more than playable. So from this pack, I picked the Savage Surge, meaning that the Centaur Battlemaster was picked. Not unsurprisingly, even if there isn't a green drafter, Centaur Battlemaster can be quite the scary card. And even the Hedonist comes around. Stymied Hopes, I don't really want to play, but yeah, it looks like things are working out quite nicely. Starting off with the red card and picking the Fanatic after having passed all the red cards is probably the one thing that I could have done better. Maybe if I don't take the Fanatic, but the Ferris Band Tromper, my deck does look a bit better with another very solid 4-drop that kind of has to be blocked, which makes the Feral Invocations better. However, I can't really say for sure what kind of an impact that would have had on the whole draft. Does this put my left neighbor into red-green, and then it did not. Then I'm basically lost for color. I'm committed to green, but if the green doesn't come and red doesn't come, then I can only hope that there's a couple of good blue cards, and then my whole draft might derail. So, and if I end up in red-green, which was still an option, then the Fanatic is the more powerful card. So that was my reasoning. Here I could pick a Savage Surge really early. With Phalanx Leader and Wingsteed Rider in the pack, I cannot really weaken the white drafter or the white drafters substantially. I could just pick Hythonia the Cruel to not have to play against this card. It is quite expensive, but it's also very tough to deal with, especially when I'm green-blue. I'm just gonna hate draft that, defensive draft it, because Savage Surge and Aquarius Form are two cards that are just not super high on my list. Alright, and Thausa, Cetacean Hero, is definitely an option, giving me another 5-drop that's solid. Then there's Nylea's Disciple, which is just really, really good if you're heavy green. However, there's also a Nimbus Naiad in the pack, and I have a feeling that this is the pack where I should take Nimbus Naiad, just be mainly green with a couple of powerful blue cards, and like I've said, Bestow is kind of exactly what this deck wants, with the Cetacean Oathsworn and the Stone Charter Warrior, casting this for 5 on either of them, or even on one of my 2-drops, is kind of the best thing that can happen. I will happily take Nylea's Disciple or Enthausa for my deck, or even consider Aquarius Form, but I'm not passing a Nimbus Naiad here, and that means I'm hiding the red from now on. So Labyrinth Champion is a bit too late here. A third Leaf Chondrite is maybe a bit excessive, but it's still a superior option to Benthic Giant and a Null for obvious reasons. You can really never have too many 2-drops, so I'm not unhappy about that. I don't like Swan Song at all. I think that Fate Foretold is barely playable. I could actually consider picking Fate into Antiquity, but it's a sorcery, and I want my disenchant effects to be instant speed most of the time. So I'm just gonna take the Fate Foretold. As you can hear, I'm not excited about it, but it might be decent, just as an early game play and a way to trigger heroic. Griptide is a card that I can see playing just to have one of the more interactive spells. A third Feral Invocation would also be an option, just ignore what the opponent is doing and try to win as fast as possible. But I'm kind of happy with the 2 that I have right now, and Griptide does give me a nice backup against some of the more powerful starts in the format. Another Stone Charter Warrior is exactly what I want, meaning that I will definitely play all my targeting effects. And here Breaching Hippocamp doesn't have a lot of value. I don't have something like a Retraction Helix. So the decision is between Nylea's Disciple and Horizon Chimera. Now you might think that Horizon Chimera is clearly the better card. It's an uncommon, it has Flash and Trample and Flying, and you gain life and whatever. But it is a double casting cost card, green-blue that is, rather than only being single green. And the trigger on Nylea's Disciple is actually quite huge. So the question is if the Flying and Trample is actually better, and I don't think so. I think that Nylea's Disciple should be the card to pick here, with evasion not quite as important as just powerful tempo plays. And the Nylea's Disciple does gain a lot more life a lot quicker compared to the Chimera. You could go both ways here. I just want to make my mana base as good as possible, so I don't really want to pick up blue cards that I don't absolutely need. Karametra's Acolyte might make it. Savage Surge might make it as well. I could actually pick Gardens of Meletis, but I want my creatures to be attacking, and that's a great pickup Now I have 2 Nelia's Disciples. A Warrior's Lesson might actually be one of the targeting effects that I will play as well. It has gotten quite a lot better with Born of the Gods in my experience. Maybe because of cards like the Cetesian Oathsworn, or just the fact that now with that many tricks and ways to punish blocking, people are just much more likely to only take the damage. And then Warrior's Lesson is kind of the best trick you can have if your opponent decides, yeah, I'll just take 3 from these 2 guys or something like that. Alright, two more cards, most likely won't be too relevant here. And then I'll be able to cut quite a lot of cards. Actually, kind of, in a sense, too many cards to cut. Even if I only play the best cards I have, I'll probably end up with far too many playables. Or on the other hand, I guess Sado Wayfinder, Sado Hedonist, and some of the other spells here, the 2 mana spells, are all not necessary. So I should actually be able to build a nice 40 card deck out of this. Alright, let's see what we have here. Clearly aiming for something like an 11/6 mana base, which shouldn't be too difficult to assemble. Easily cutting the minor blue cards. And as is quite clear, I need to cut some 2-drops. I actually need to cut them right now to actually be able to sort this properly. Alright, I'm not even considering Hedonist and Wayfinder. I think with so many good options, I don't need to play cards like that. And then there is a couple of 3-drops, a bunch of 4-drops, so I can easily cut some of these as well. Probably these are the 4 I really want, and the Acolyte I could play, but my deck is very cheap, to be honest. Even the bestow cards only bestow for 4, so the question is if Ferris Band Centaurs is a card that I absolutely want, or if I could do without it. On the other hand, I've not been playing enough creatures. It's very it's very easy to run into the problem of not running enough creatures in this format, simply because the spells offer so much value and utility that you kind of only want bestow cards, creatures, heroic creatures, and you don't want like the random other creatures, and you have to pick up the spells quite highly, like the Feral Invocations, the Griptide, the Sea God's Revenge, all of these very high picks. So I kind of didn't end up with insane creatures to work with. Now, Warrior's Lesson, Aspect of Hydra, Fate Foretold, at least one of the Savage Surges are definitely up for discussion. I don't really need all of them. And with only the Oathsworn and 2 Storm-Charted Warriors, the question is, how important are more targeting effects? And by more, I mean I have these 2 cards to deal with permanence. I have the Time Defeat, which does both, so that's absolutely amazing. And then Raised by Wolves, the 2 Feral Invocations, and Time Defeat are set. This is 6. Now, I'm aiming for, like I said, I'm pretty much set on an 11/6 mana base, so that's 17 lands. 6 spells are already there, which would leave space for 17 creatures. On the other hand, I don't even have 17 creatures that I want to run. I think the best creatures that I currently am not running are the 2-drops, simply because 2-drops are the best thing in the format. I'm not playing the double blue card, and I think the Acolyte is just not powerful enough. That leaves Sado Wayfinder and Sado Hedonist as 1 or 2 options, and I already need to cut 2 of these spells to go down to 23 cards, and if I want to add 1 or 2 of these creatures, then I need to cut another card. Alright, I think cutting 1 Fate Foretold and 1 Savage Surge is quite easy. If I have the option, I want to diversify my tricks, and the 2 Feral Invocations already do a very good job, especially compared to Savage Surge, simply because Feral Invocation gives me a permanent effect. I'm definitely running Deepwater Hypnotist and Omen Speaker, which doesn't always work out if you only have 6 islands. On the other hand, if I play them on turn 3, they are also still fine in the curve. Also, the Servant Caryatid will help me with the mana a little bit. I want to try out Warrior's Lesson because I think that the 3 heroic creatures that I have are actually pretty amazing with the Warrior's Lesson. It kind of works perfectly, and also the 2 Feral Invocations will mean that creatures are going to go unblocked more often, so I really want this card. Aspect of Hydra, to me, feels like it has to be better than Savage Surge, simply because of the fact that Feral Invocation is already a very good +2/+2 effect, but Aspect of Hydra is a +2/+2, a +4/+4, a +6/+6, maybe a +10/+10 effect. So it adds something quite unique to this deck. And that means that Savage Surge is not making it. I think this is more than enough ways to target my creatures, and somehow I managed to open up a slot for one of my 2-drops. So it's either the Wayfinder, which is only 1/1, just to have Devotion and add some more mana, or it's the Hedonist, which is well, basically a 2-power creature. So in this case, I think it's quite easy. I have 18 mana sources if I count the Caryatid, and the Hedonist adds Devotion as well, but its 2-power mean that it's better at trading with opposing creatures. It's also more likely to be blocked if I attack with it, making Feral Invocation better. Having a 2/1 that turns into 4/3 is not optimal, but it can still work out quite nicely. So, kind of like getting one more creature in there. 15 is kind of the least that I want, and I like my tricks. I will need to be careful not to lose my creatures unnecessarily, and then everything should work out. This is 5 blue cards, so 6 islands should be more than enough. I'm not playing 4, that's pretty crazy. And 11 forests should be more than enough to cast Swordwise Centaur, Cetizen Oathsworn, and then looking at Nalia's Disciple, you want a bit more than an even split to cast a 4-color double casting cost card, and I have 11/6 split, which is more like 2/3. So the only thing that I have to be aware of is that I want to start with forests, but that should be quite easy. All right, this is my deck, and I kind of like it.